Welcome to the Especially for Athletes podcast, where we explore essential principles that empower athletes to learn life's most valuable lessons through sports.
I think one of the greatest opportunities that we all have in life is to be a part of a team. And that's why I love sports, and especially youth sports, so much, because I think it teaches us truly how to be part of a team and to really give ourselves to the mission, the vision, and the values of that team. Everybody has a role on that team, and everybody's role is just as important as the next person's. And even though there's times where you may not have the role that you want on your team, be the best at where you are at that moment, and focus on being the best teammate that you could be at all times. The way that you work, the way that you interact with your teammates, the way that you support them. It's okay to be competitive. It's okay to be disappointed when you face failure, but you also must realize that failure is the best teacher, and failure at the end of the day is what is going to have you come back working even harder, even more focused, even more determined, even more resilient. And that's what's going to get you to where you want to be. And so, never get complacent. It's okay. Never be satisfied. Continue to focus and work each and every day to be the very best that you can be. Most importantly, be the best teammate that you could be, because that's when you really start to create incredible things with your team.
So, Shad, that was Drew Brees, Hall of Fame, one of the best quarterbacks to ever play ever in the NFL. He said that at our E4A golf fundraiser last year. He came down and played in that tournament, and we were able to spend a lot of time with Drew. But that comment that he made right there, I was 30 feet from him when he said it. I didn't know what he was talking about. When we finally did hear it a week or two later, listen to the audio, I was excited for the chance we'd get to talk about this subject, because that's an easy thing to say. It's a harder thing to do when you say accept your role. And I think understanding what accepting your role means, being on a team, and how hard that can be, the resilience and the strength and the humility that it shows to accept your role. It doesn't mean that you accept not playing. You want to play. It means that you accept how you approach not playing. You accept that you're not playing right now in this game, and you still have a job to do. The job is not to feel sorry for yourself. The job is not to hope that your team plays well so you can get in, or that you can prove that your coach doesn't know what he's doing by not playing you, or that somebody gets hurt so that you can play, or that's not acceptable. Being upset, wanting to play and wanting to find out what you have to do to play, and get instruction from your coach on what do I need to do to get better, and then working to hopefully earn that respect or trust, I guess, of your coach to get in and play. You should be, I would ask athletes to never accept not playing. Like, you should always want to play more. But when you're not playing, Drew talked about it, everybody has a role. Every coach has a role, every player has a role, and every fan has a role. And that is to make the experience a positive one, and to cheer and to support and to hope for the best for those that you're a part of a team with, if you're really a teammate and not selfish. That's hard. Human nature might be to feel sorry for yourself, or be angry, or to resent the fact that you're not out there being this, winning or playing. But that's where the real resiliency that I think he's talking about. Is that what you thought he meant there, Shad? Is he talking about being resilient in accepting your role? Is there a level of resiliency there that he's alluding to?
I think so. I think you nailed it. In fact, as you were talking, as I heard his quote there, I was thinking, accept your current role and make as big of a contribution as you can in that current role, but don't settle for your current role. Like, you're a coach, Dustin. Like, it's not that you want kids that you say, hey, you're the backup running back. You want them to accept that role and say, okay, I'm going to get ready. I'm always one snap away from getting in. I'm going to need to give that guy a rest every now and then. But it's okay to accept that current role, make as big of a contribution as you can there, But I don't think you would ever want a running back that was like, I don't even want to be first string. Right. So I think you could accept part of resilience is when we aren't where we want to be on the depth chart or whatever, we accept it. We make a huge contribution there, but then we don't settle for that. We don't act like that's forever where we're going to be. And you've coached hundreds of kids. I'm wondering how you feel about that kid that maybe doesn't have the spot on the team that they hoped for, but they are an incredible teammate. They are passionate where they are. They are excitedly ready to go in and make a contribution when they're called upon. I wondered what you've learned from those kids as you've coached for these many years and what that leads to when you accept your role. You don't settle for it, but you accept it and you try to make a contribution where you are.
Well, first of all, it leads to more wins. Somebody who's not even on the field, maybe participating in the game, can have an impact in such a way with their attitude that wins games. And they don't realize it because they're not there on the field, but their attitude in the bus, in the locker room, in the school, at practice, the energy that they put forth at practice when they're maybe giving the starter reps and they got to go up against that person. Their energy and their effort to want to make sure that the starter is ready for the game is what helps that starter be successful in the game. And so they should feel absolutely a part of the win. And I would guess that every coach in team sports would say the same, that your backups need to be playing and fighting like they're starters, trying to win every second they can at practice, because you want them to want to feel like, if I get better and I show that I can handle my role as the backup at practice better, eventually I might be the starter. And the truth is that you want to play those kids. And yeah. Shad, you don't want to play the other kids. It's reality. And parents, it is what it is. If your kid pouts, if the body language is poor, you can see that they're just negative and they don't want to be there because they're not playing. You don't want to play that kid. Why would you want to play that kid? First of all, his body language and energy is telling you that he's not ready. He's going to go in and not be ready. Instead of focusing on what's being taught, the instructions that he probably more than anybody needs to know, because it might be why he or she isn't playing, is because they don't pay attention. If they're busy going through their head on why they should be playing and how wrong this is and how wronged they are and this isn't fair and I'm being picked on, and that's what's going through their head, they're probably missing an instruction being taught by the coach or a play or a tweak to something that when they do go in and they don't know. Yeah. So coach doesn't want to learn on the fly. He's seen it at practice, so he's not going to play your son or daughter in the game if he has seen that at practice. And part of the reason why I think sometimes kids act that way, it's human nature to be disappointed if you're not playing. Every kid's going to be, and coaches understand that. But you can be disappointed, and like you said, and like Drew said, accepting your role and understanding that, okay, I'm disappointed, but I'm going to own the role that I'm in hopes that in doing that, I'm going to get myself better and show coach that I care and that I'm passionate and I'm on the same page as the team. And that might earn me more time on the field or on the court. And the truth is that probably will earn them more time on the court or on the field, because coaches want to see those kids be successful. We cheer for those kinds of kids, but parents have a role in that as well. Most of these kids, I know this with teams I've coached, even really good teams I've coached, like the team I coached this year that played about as well as a team can play, the best in the 105 years of the school, this particular team. And there were still parents who thought we got it wrong. We broke all these records. We did all these things right. Obviously, something we were doing was working because we led the state in all these categories and had all this success, won all these games. But yet there were still parents who thought, well, you don't know what you're doing. You're an idiot. And that's the case at every school. When that is the case, though, and they tell their son or their daughter that at home, how do you expect your son or daughter to act when they come to practice? Excited? with positive, optimistic, what's their body language going to put off to the coach when you just fed them with this poison of your coach doesn't know what he's doing, you're being mistreated, that other kid isn't as good as you are, he's horrible at doing this, or he can't block, or he doesn't do that or that well, you're better than him at that. How is your son going to go now and react in practice in a way that the coach doesn't see that pollution that you just fed him? Mm-hmm. The answer to that is he is going to see it, or she is going to see it. They're going to see that this kid has been fed this stuff, and I'm less likely or just naturally less inclined to want to see that kid be successful or play, because they don't care about the team and they don't care about the program, and they just care about them. So parents have a major role in that, in telling their kids, look, don't accept that you're the backup. You work your tail off and try to become the starter. But as the backup, you better be the very best backup ever to play. And how do you do that? This is what you do. And if you do that, son, and your energy is positive and things at practice, your coach will see that and you're going to have a better chance. Does that mean they'll play? Doesn't, unfortunately. Doesn't mean they're going to play more. But they're more likely than the alternative. I can promise you that. They're more likely to play than if you're doing the other, because that comes out in how he acts at practice, and everybody sees it, and the coaches see it. When they get together and talk, they can sense that what's wrong with him. Oh, it's probably coming from mom and dad. Yeah, well, I don't trust him. Yeah. So parents have a major role in that.
I agree, Dustin. In fact, one time in my profession, this will bleed over, into their life as well. I finally had to take a person aside one time and tell him he just wasn't getting the assignment he wanted at work. He wanted a position that a lot of people wanted, and he wasn't getting year after year. He would ask, can I be placed here? Can I do this? And he wasn't getting that assignment. And finally, and then he would sulk. I mean, all of February, all of March, it was just because that's when things are kind of, what's happening in the next year. Finally had to go to him and say, if you think you're going to pout your way into a position, you are wrong. You perform your way into a position. You do not pout your way into a position. And so some of these things we're doing to make our kids feel better during high school, they could bleed over and show themselves 20 years when they're at work. Do you think if you walk into work and you didn't get that promotion and someone else did get the promotion and then you're sulking, do you really think a boss is going to come to that kid or that adult now and say, hey, what's wrong? You just seem so sad, and I didn't get that position. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'll give it to you. That's just not life. In fact, Drew Brees said this. He went on, it's okay to be competitive. It's okay to be disappointed when you face failure. But you also must realize that failure is the best teacher. Failure at the end of the day is what is going to have you come back working even harder, even more focused, even more determined, even more resilient. And that's what's going to get you where you want to be. So I love that second part of his quote is he's acknowledging what we're saying here is, look, if you get assigned a position on a team that you don't love, the things that are going to get you to where you want to be is working even harder, being even more focused, being even more determined, being even more resilient. It's not pouting and complaining and causing division on a team and having your parents talk to the other parents in the stands whose kids also don't have the roles that they want. And, that's the stuff that leads to division, and it does not lead to growth. And so any thoughts on that? You sent me that video from Bruce Pearl.
Maybe you could get that queued up. That'd be a good time to share that. Yeah, longtime college coach, and he kind of addressed this in a post conference. I don't know when it came across. I saw it on social media. I'm not sure when it happened. Maybe it was recently, but it was pretty cool what he said.
Yeah. So here's what Bruce Pearl said about a young man, highly touted, obviously, if he's going to the SEC as a freshman, to the top team in the country right now as a freshman. And Bruce Pearl said this about the kid when they asked a question, because if I understand correctly, someone got hurt. He had to start a game, and he came in and he actually played really, really well. And this is what Bruce Pearl said about that.
I think every player's got great strengths. Every player has got weaknesses. And my job as head coach is to put my players in positions to be successful. And when they are, they're going to have more confidence because they're going to look good at the stuff they're good at. I mean, Todd Pettiford has not started a game and has not said one word to any of his coaches. His family has not said a single word because he was raised right. And look, guys, there are still great stories about kids that want to be coached. They want to be held accountable. And kids that aren't, I spoil my children, but I will slap the rotten right out of them. We all spoil our kids, don't we? But we ain't going to spoil them rotten. And that's why I want to coach. And that's why I want my kids to feel they're loved. But when they do behave selfishly, or they do behave in such a way that either God's not going to bless it or it's going to bring the team down, we call it out. We call it out. And so, I mean, Todd's been great. And he's got great courage. As a freshman, the senior's done a great job kind of embracing him. And, to play the entire game and to have Butler guarding him sometimes and not have a turnover is incredible.
So this player isn't starting, and the coach is complimenting or recognizes the fact that his parents and family and the kid haven't said anything about him not starting. So that tells you right there that sometimes coaches, in fact, parents, coaches notice more what you don't say than what you do say. When you don't complain and you don't make a fuss, coaches notice that more than when you scream and yell, because we turn that stuff off. There's nothing that you say to a coach that is you're not gonna complain yourself or demean a coach into more playing time. We hear that stuff. We just put it away in a bank in our brain and say, all right, that parent's, I can't trust that parent because they're not gonna trust my decision making. And the fact of the matter is, it's your son or daughter who usually pays the price for that with less playing time. But in this case, this kid doesn't hear, or this coach doesn't hear anything from this kid's family and parents about it. And he was excited to play the kid, and the seniors embraced him, and everybody embraced him because of that. Why? Because he was a positive, optimistic, hard-working kid who accepted his role as a backup until his role to start came up, and then he was ready to play. He'd earned the trust of the coach to start in a big game instead of losing the trust of his coach by complaining and whining and having parents who complained and whined.
Yeah. I have a relative, I'll just keep this vague, who has a son that's a really, really good basketball player. And the coach of this junior high team where he was playing, it was a 9th grade team, had parents that were just constantly, you're getting things wrong. And this team was 17-2. And so they were playing a team that wasn't very good. The coach was pretty confident that they could beat them pretty good. So he sat down 5 starters and let these kids that all their parents have been calling him and complaining about their role on the team, and let them play the whole first quarter. And they were down 24-7 after the first quarter in a junior high basketball game. And the assistant coach turned to him and said, hey, when are we going to put in the starters? And he's like, after the first quarter. We'll put them back in after the first quarter. So 24-7, put in the starters. And by halftime, the score was 37-27. And then they ended up winning by 26. But he just wanted like 20 plus, I don't know. But he just wanted to make the point. I mean, sometimes parents' perception of things, what makes a high school coach in particular want to coach? They love kids. They want to help kids grow. They aren't doing it for the money. Most of them are passionate and competitive people that love sports. They want to win so badly, right? And so they're going to play the kids that help them to win. And so I love this topic, Dustin, because I just feel like sometimes when coaches and parents get this out of balance, and when players get this out of balance, when they think that they can sulk and put their head down and tout their way into a position, it's never going to happen. But if they'll embrace their role, even if they don't climb to all the goals that they hope to achieve. I love this. This was Tom Brady. He said this. We've said something like this before. A lot of times I find that people who are blessed with the most talent don't ever develop that resilient, powerful attitude to be great. The ones that aren't blessed in that way with the most talent are the most competitive and have the biggest heart and actually pass those with talent up. And so we've talked about that before, but these kids that don't have the role they want, are you going to get any better by pouting? No. Dustin, just what thoughts do you have on that? You know, we have these kids that maybe don't have all the physical gifts in the world, but they accept their role. They don't settle for their role. They work like crazy. They have a great attitude. They're the best teammate in the world. You love coaching them. I'm sure you've had some kids like that you've coached that even come to mind right now. Any come to mind? Any stories come to mind?
Well, Tom Brady, what he just said right there, he was the perfect example of that. Tom Brady was talented. Everybody that makes professional athletics is talented, but he was not the most talented. There were more talented quarterbacks in the last 20 years, dozens of them, I think, than Tom Brady. Tom Brady developed his talent into an exceptional skill set that was elite by work and by study and by all sorts of other things to become who he was. He was really talented, but people coming out of college, people who were paid a lot of money to evaluate talent did not see Tom Brady becoming Tom Brady. It's the same thing with Drew Brees. Drew Brees, I mean, you saw him at our golf tournament. Drew Brees is 6 feet tall. He looks just like a regular dude. He's probably the most accurate passer to ever play in the NFL.
Same thing with Ty Detmer.
Yeah.
I remember one time, hopefully this isn't offensive. We weren't athletic specimen at the time, but we were a little younger than Ty, but we were sitting at a table and having a hamburger, I remember. And I was looking around the table. There was 4 of us there, I think. And I was thinking, if this server knew nothing about football and we said one of these people won the Heisman Trophy and played professional football for a decade plus, which one? She may have chosen Ty Detmer as the 4th pick, yet look at what he did, right? Yeah. I mean, the guy was incredible.
Well, and Ty, if you're listening to this, that Shad opinion, I say she would have chosen you first. Absolutely. She would have been a no.
Just saying the physical attributes is not what set Ty Detmer apart. I was actually really amazed at that he accomplished what he did.
You're exactly right. I think some of the very best basketball players, football players, baseball players, the most talented, we don't know their name. The most talented basketball player is playing in some YMCA somewhere, some Vasa gym somewhere, right? Some high school gym on Saturday mornings. And he could have been the very best. He was the most talented, but he didn't do all the other things. And talent only gets you so far. After that, you have to have developed an elite skill set to get over the hump. I had a kid recently. I have a kid right now who physically has all the attributes to be a starter. But he's young. He's a sophomore. He didn't play a lot last year. He started in the first 2 games of the year. In the first 2 games this season, we were trying to figure some things out. We had several young guys that we tried to see if they could play this position or that position, and we were trying to figure it out. And after that second game, we made some decisions and kind of knew what we had and went with some other guys and ended up having this incredible run after that. Well, this kid didn't play much the rest of the year. He was playing offense and defense. And he has all the physical attributes. If you saw him, you'd say, I almost thought he could start as a freshman the year before when he was 14. He's that athletic and his size and everything. Well, as the year went on, and even part of right after the season, I didn't get the impression that his attitude was where I wanted it. I had heard some things that were being said by people close to him that I didn't like. I let it go and hoped that he would just mature and things would change. And to this kid's credit, he didn't just jump ship and run to another school. We had a conversation. I was very honest with him about what happened and what he needed to do. To his credit, he's done that. and he is just working his tail off. He's going to class. He's doing all the things he's supposed to do. I've seen him recently. I have every intention of starting this kid his junior and senior year, possibly offense and defense. He'll end up, when he graduates, probably being a kid who gets a chance to go play in college, and he'll have that story of, I played my first 2 games as a sophomore, started, beat a really good team our first game of the season, and he caught the winning touchdown in that, in that game, and didn't play the rest of the year. And instead of choosing to let that ruin the last 4 months since the season's ended and being a pain, he's flipped it to, well, I'm going to put my head down and get to work and come back and earn it. And I'm proud as heck of him so far. And right now, he is earning his way into a starting position. And we're still, several months away from the start of the season. But his attitude has earned him right now. If we had to start a game, play a game today, he would be playing. And I haven't seen him in a helmet since the last game of the year that he didn't play in. Just his attitude and his work ethic the last 3 or 4 months since season ended is probably earning him a starting spot if we had to start right now. And there could be other kids who take the other approach, and they're going to have to put a helmet and shoulder pads on and really show us this summer, because as of right now, they're not on the depth chart. They're 3rd or 4th from what we've seen the last 3 months. And those are kids who just think their talent, to Tom Brady's point, well, my talent's just I'm good, obviously. I even played last year. I had a kid ask me, that they're thinking of moving to the city that we live in. And he said, hey, coach, my dad, our family is moving. We might move there. He told me to reach out to you. I'm wondering if there's a spot available to play at corner. Would I play if I came there at corner? Is there a spot open? And my answer to his email was, I said, there's 11 spots open on defense. And there's 11 spots open on offense. It's the same every year. Just because a kid played last year does not mean he's playing this year. So you have a chance to play any position. You could pick a position. You have a chance to play that just as much as the other kid does. But we'll see through work ethic and through commitment and then through performance when we get closer to the season who actually plays or not. But there's no, you got to earn it every year. And Tom Brady did that. What he ate, how he slept, how he took care of his body, all the film study, everything he did. You don't just become Tom Brady because you're 6'5" and you have a good arm. He had to earn his way into becoming, and playing as many years as he played.
Yeah, that's awesome. I just hope that this happens a lot with young, talented kids who make a varsity team as a sophomore. It also happens with kids who are in the 9th grade who may not ever play varsity ball, but who are on the team now. For me, those who accept their role and make a contribution where they're at, but don't settle for that role, as Drew Brees said, it's the work, it's the determination, it's the resilience. Even if you don't end up where you want, you've developed those attributes, and that will help you in life. Some who have all the talent in the world are actually kind of hampered by that because they never learned they're good enough. They're good enough to always play, and that's good enough for them. I love the kid that has to fight their way into a lineup because I think that helps them in life way more than the ones that are just gifted talent and don't do much with it. And of course, you don't have to do that. You could be gifted talent and then become incredible as well, as we've talked about before. Yeah. So, well, any final thoughts, Dustin, on this?
One thing that I'd say I haven't been great at as a coach. I'm trying to be better at it, but I'm not alone in this. I think all coaches, we need to be better at this on this topic of roles, as we need to do better to make sure that those kids understand their role. Some just don't understand their role. And that's on us as coaches and parents to help them understand their role. That doesn't mean they have to be there forever, but right now that's what it is. And we need them to be the very best at that role. And that role can change. Like you said, one play away, your role changes. You're all of a sudden a guy now, right? And you might be the rest of the year. My second best offensive lineman this season broke his leg in the first play of the game in the 6th game of the season. We had 8 more games after that without him. First play, broke his leg. There was a backup that just got done doing warm-up. The ball just got kicked to us. He thought, okay, well, maybe I'll get in at the end of this game. Second play, he's in. It's go time. You're in the rest of the season.
Yeah.
Like you are now, and that kid ended up playing in a state championship game where at the kickoff of game 6, he had no clue, no thought at all that he would even play at all. And he ended up starting in 8 games, just like that. So, but we need to make sure they understand their role and keep them ready and and talk with them, because kids are going to have a hard time accepting that. And it's I think we need to be careful and not treating them so much like adults. They're not adults. We need to make sure they understand this is maybe the first time for some of them being in that role. And as coaches, and I'm speaking in the mirror here to myself, we have to be better at understanding that and recognizing the age of the kid, the situation, what they're going through, that this is going to be something they remember for the rest of their life, being a backup and maybe struggling with that, being embarrassed by that. And we have to make sure that we're helping them. And then parents, we need your help to not undermine the efforts that we might be trying to do to build that boy or girl to be resilient and to fight back, and that if you undo everything we're trying to do by how you talk about us at home, it makes it hard for the coach to build this boy into what, like this kid I just told you about, that we're trying to build him into, which is someday a super tough, resilient, really good player that they're capable of becoming.
Yeah. So that just reminded me of one thing, maybe my closing thought. We talked about Doug Meacham in our show prep for this.
Yeah. Lost a state championship game in basketball, and he's one of the best dudes and coaches you'll ever meet, but had a team, got there, and it's just part of the business, man. It's so hard, but so Doug, if you're listening, excellent season, and you're an awesome coach.
What would you know about making it to a state championship game? And I'm just kidding.
And losing. I know it very well. Yeah, I'm good at that.
What I was going to say about Doug is his personal story. We probably need to have Doug on again. I love Doug. He got cut in high school his junior year. How many people do you know get cut from a high school basketball team their junior year and then end up playing on a college team that makes a run to the national championship game? But that's Doug Meacham. And he talked about how his mother responded, and his mother she was sorry for him. She was sad for him. And then she said, what are you going to do to make it next year? And he started right then to make it next year. And he told a few stories of parents, one of which a kid went all the way down to southern Utah to play in a tournament, traveled all the way down there, and didn't play much at all. And actually, he was thinking like, gosh, I probably should have got that kid in more. It was just an oversight. He saw the kid talking to his dad in a tunnel, and then the kid came to talk to him, and Doug thought, oh man, here we go. I should have played that kid more. And the kid looked him in the eye, shook his hand, and said, thanks, coach, for all the time you've put into helping us have an awesome weekend. Thank you so much for the opportunity. And then walked away. And Doug was like, that is a great father. He doesn't know what happened in that conversation, but he knows the son came and thanked him for the time and effort he put in, even though the kid hadn't played. And he told another thing that he did that relates to your last comment there. Maybe one of the reasons why he's such a great coach, wherever he goes, he has success. There are times where he will do film review and he will put the camera on the bench and he will highlight the players that are bringing energy while they're on the bench to the teammates that are playing. And I agree with you, Dustin. On the coach side of thing, we could talk about the player side of things, the parent side of things. And I'm sure it's really hard for coaches to do this. But my own children who've gone through, I've had 2 who've danced in their high school drill team, a really good high school drill team, and went on and danced in college. And I have one who plays tennis. And when their coaches communicate to them, I've seen life come into their life. For example, that sometimes it's that just being in the dark. Does my coach hate me? Am I doing something to annoy my coach? Teenagers worry a lot about relationships. And I think kids can handle a role that they didn't anticipate having if a coach will pull them aside and say, hey, look, I really want you in this dance. I really want you in this dance. You do so many things that are awesome. we're doing an aerial to both sides in this dance because it gets so many more points when we do that. I hope you could get your left aerial or your right aerial, because I would love to have you in this dance and have you bring what you bring to our team. So you work on that. And if you get that, we could put you in that. That feels a lot different than just all of a sudden you're not in the dance with no communication, right? And with nothing like that. And so I found that the best coaches do communicate really, really well with their players. The players know where they stand. They know what they can do to get where they want to get. And they know what their role is. And they're encouraged in that role. And so I really love that you brought that up, Dustin. I didn't anticipate this going that much longer, but I think that's an important part of coaches trying to apply this, though none of us will do any of these things perfectly.
Good episode, everybody. Keep your eyes up. Do the work.
Thank you for joining the Especially for Athletes podcast. To learn more about Especially for Athletes organization, get a copy of our book, The Sportlight, or to bring our program to your team, school, business, or organization, visit us at especiallyforathletes.org.